Wedge Issues is brought to you by wispolitics.com, a place where political insiders go for news, opinion, and campaign information. Once again, that's wispolitics.com.
Fred Risser has been serving in the Wisconsin Legislature since 1957. That's right, 1957. He is a Democrat representing Madison in the state Senate, and he is the longest-serving state legislator in all of American history. I'm Jessie Opoien, and this is Wedge Issues, a Cap Times podcast about state government and politics in Wisconsin. If you're thinking the audio sounds a little funny this week, that's because I'm recording this from the comfort of my home on a very icy, treacherous day here in Madison. Before the ice storm hit, I sat down with Senator Risser, who at 91 years old has a lot of history and a lot of stories to tell about the state capitol.
Yes, I'm State Senator Fred Risser, and I represent most of Madison and Shorewood Hills in the Wisconsin State Legislature. I originally started in the Assembly. I was there for 6 years. Now I've been in the State Senate for over 50 years. Total time in the legislature to date is 62 years.
That's quite some time. That's more than double my life, I think, at this point. And you are the longest serving state legislator in the country, is that correct?
That's what they say, yes.
Yeah. Do you ever think about that, or is it sort of secondary?
Time goes pretty fast when you're enjoying it.
That's good. That's good. And you come from a political family. Yes, tell me about that.
Well, you know, I'm the fourth generation to represent this community in the state legislature and the fourth political party, which surprises some people.
Yeah.
This area has had different political parties. I'm the only Democrat the family has had. My father served three terms in the state Senate as a progressive when the progressives were in fact, he was the last progressive office holder in the state of Wisconsin. The progressives disbanded in 46 and he served till 48. My grandfather, my mother's father, Ernest Warner, after whom Warner Park was named, served in the state assembly as a Republican, was author of the State Civil Service Act in 1905. And my great-grandfather, Colonel Warner, who lost an arm in the Civil War and Battle of Deep Bottom, and was with Grant when he surrendered, was at one time elected as a Unionist. So this particular area has had Unionists, Republicans, Progressives, and Democrats. And it's a family that has been consistent. The parties are the ones that change. And you can see the parties have had different philosophies, but the family and my ancestors have always been strong supporters of public education and good government, environmental concerns, and balanced budgets. They've all been interested in making government work. My dad always said that if you had the ability and the desire, you should help make our form of government better and help it keep going.
Was there ever any question about whether you would go into politics?
I knew from the time I was born that I was going to go into politics. I was going to follow my dad and my grandfather, and it was always a topic of dinner time conversation, and politics was always something that the family was involved in, and it was just automatic that I was planning to go into it sooner or later.
Sure. Well, what made you? What makes you a Democrat? I guess you come from a history of different parties. What made you align the way that you have?
Well, when I got involved in politics, I was interested in the way that Democrats acted. Now, actually, I came in an area when the progressives sort of disbanded, and the Republican Party was undergoing changes. The Republican Party, part of it was progressive, part of it was conservative. The conservatives sort of took over about the time I was involved, and I was more interested in progressive viewpoint, innovative viewpoint, and it was the resurgence of the Democratic Party, which had been very conservative at one time, and I would not have liked it, but it was redeveloping, taking over what used to be the progressive element of the Republican Party. And the progressives gathered together in the rejuvenated Democratic Party, and that was a party that I liked.
Okay. Well, tell me a little bit about your life before you ran for office. What led you to the point that you're...
I happen to be the last World War II veteran in the state legislature. Actually, I had a good education, public education. I went to Madison West High, graduated from West High, joined the Navy when we were still in war, at the very end of the war, and as the Navy medics. And after getting out of the service, I went to college. I wanted to get a college education away from Madison. So I spent 2 years at Northfield, Minnesota, Carleton College.
Yeah.
And then I went out to the University of Oregon, as far as Madison, away from Madison as I could get, and still be in the United States at the time. And I have 2 degrees from the University of Oregon. Came back here, entered the practice of law, and joined my dad's law firm, and got involved in political activity, awaiting an opportunity to run for office. And the opportunity came when my particular area, the assemblyman, decided to run for mayor. So I said to myself, if he gets elected, I'm going to run for his seat. So I went out to work and tried to help him get elected mayor, so there'd be an opening. And there was an opening there, and I ran for the assembly seat and representing downtown Madison, since I lived downtown at the time. And after 3 terms in the assembly, the Senate seat opened up. The senator was appointed. My senator was Horace Wilkie. He was appointed to the Supreme Court. And so I said, opening there. So I ran for that spot. And since then, I've been reelected to the state Senate.
You don't even really draw so much of a challenger anymore.
Well, I've had challenges, and you should have challenges, and I've had some good ones. The last time I won without opposition, which is always nice too.
Get a little break. What are some of your early memories of legislation that you worked on, or topics that were up for debate when you were in your early days?
When I first started out, the Republicans had control of everything. The Senate, the Assembly, all state offices. We had a Republican governor. But the point was, 2 years later, there was a complete switch. In 2 years, the Democrats took over the Assembly, and the governor changed from a Republican to a Democrat. Gaylord Nelson won. And that gave me an opportunity to develop, since I was one of the few Democrats that had served in the Republican-controlled Assembly. And I became the Assembly Chairman of the Joint Finance Committee, which was a tremendous education. And so I was on Finance Committee for a number of times, and when I went over to the Senate, I went into the leadership line, was a minority leader for about 10 years. And then we changed the Constitution to let the Senate select their own presiding officer. Before that, the Lieutenant Governor presided. And so I was elected to the President of the Senate. And off and on for 25 years, I've been President of the Senate. So I've had a number of leadership positions. And I've had a number of opportunities to work on budgetary items. I'm very interested, of course, in our university, which is a world-class university. I'm interested in public education, which is one of the principal forces of government. Environment is something that I feel very strongly about. A lot of times you can get something done if you give someone else credit. And so I have discovered that if you have a good idea, sometimes you help give someone else a chance to get some credit on it, you get your idea passed. So I've been quite satisfied with the accomplishments I've had in the state legislature.
Are there any particular that stand out when you look back that you're especially proud of?
As I say, a lot of times you accomplish things by giving other people credit or by burying them in other bills. Mm-hmm. But no, I take credit for 25 years to finally come across with a smoking bill that took smoking out of public places. It was a long, bitter struggle. I was the one who finally got Wisconsin to allow contraceptives to be sold and not be considered indecent articles. There used to be a time when people couldn't get contraceptives. even had troubles getting doctors a prescription on it.
Wow.
Of course, that we were one of the last states to take contraceptives off the indecent article list. And seatbelt bill was one that I spent several years in trying to accomplish. I was able to pass legislation to permit seniors to go to monitor university classes if the classes have room for them. And that was something that we had to negotiate with the university because they didn't particularly want it, but it's turned out very well, and senior citizens have that opportunity.
What are some of the tougher battles that you've had to deal with in the legislature?
Well, I don't win them all. And I, at one time, was very strong against the lottery. And I thought that the gambling was not the greatest idea. I took the position that it was basically a tax on the poorer people, because generally those people that couldn't afford it would spend more on it. That was my argument at the time, but I lost that. The last 8 years, of course, the Democrats have been in the minority, so we have had our ideas thrown in the wastebasket by the majority party, and we hope to make some changes now.
Yeah, do you think, having experienced all different iterations of partisan control, how do you think it's going to work these next 4 years with the Democrat in the governor's office and Republicans leading the legislature?
In my opinion, it can't be as bad as it has been in the past. We have a governor that will veto the roughest stuff. I've been very concerned about the approach of the last administration on environmental concerns. They took the scientists away from the Department of Natural Resources. Now, why would you take scientists away from a subject like that? And they took all funds away from the state parks. One time, the state used to help support the state parks. Now it's strictly the sticker program, and they've just done away with state funds. I take the position that environmental activities are extremely important, and I think that the past administration giving waivers to water purification and air purification is a mistake. People will come and go, buildings will come and go, but once the environment's gone, it's pretty bad. And one thing to promote business and promote state activity is to have a good place to live and raise a family and enjoy life. And we have an environmental gem here in Wisconsin. We are lucky, and we should be spending more time in promoting our natural resources.
So how many different governors have you worked with over the years?
This is the 13th one.
Okay.
Actually, I've had, before this one, I had 6 Democrats and 6 Republicans.
Wow.
And this is now another Democrat, so it's 7 Democrats and 6 Republicans. And in my opinion, most of them have been, Democrats and Republicans have been interested in doing their best job. I've been very impressed. Some of the Republican governors have been excellent, even though I may not agree with all their policies. We've had some good Democratic governors, and I have concerns about what has happened the last couple of years. We've had a governor that was, in my opinion, more interested in national politics, running for president, and I think he introduced budgets which he thought would be better accepted nationally than statewide. And, I'm optimistic about the future. I wouldn't be in the business if I wasn't optimistic, and I'm really optimistic that we've got a governor who is very interested in education, needs of transportation, needs of healthcare, and I'm looking forward to working with him, and hope that we will help prove that this is going to be, again, a progressive, innovative state.
Your colleagues will often joke about, your age and the being part of the institution, and always in a respectful, I think, and kind way. But
let me say this: there's different ages.
Mm-hmm.
There's a chronological age.
Mm-hmm.
There's an age, a physical age. There's the age of maturity. There's the age of judgment. There's different ages. So chronological age is just one of the ages.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, there's something to be said for the historical perspective, right? You know more about the history of the institution.
No one else has. I have a historical perspective for the last 62 years.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, many people elected to office are concerned with just the next election. And sometimes to be just concerned with the next election, you have a short view. And I think it's very important to have a long-range view. And I've tried to take the long-range view on a number of things.
Yeah. So looking from the start of your time in the legislature to now, what are some things that have changed and what are some things that remain constant?
A lot of things have changed. One thing that's changed is the makeup of the legislature. When I entered the Senate in 1962, the Senate had never had anything but white men. There had been no women, no minorities. Now we have both women and minorities. In fact, we have had women as president of the Senate and women as leaders, and that's good. And of course, another change is that the legislative was strictly a part-time job when I entered, and it's become full-time to many people. Over half the legislators consider them full-time legislators. When I started out, I figured we'd be in the legislature for a couple of months out of a 2-year period. We'd pass a budget, we'd adjourn, and then we'd continue my practice of law. And it was part-time, but it has developed full-time. And in addition to that, we have legislators giving them great services. We have legislative agencies, Fiscal Bureau, Legislative Council. We have the tools. The legislature now has the tools to go ahead and develop policies. And when I started out, of course, we didn't have any facilities. We had a desk. And we had no rooms. We had no telephones or no stationery, no secretaries, no staff. We had a pool of secretaries that came in just during the 2 or 3 months we were in session, type letters based on your seniority. And if you were just new into the legislature, you didn't get any help at all. So now legislators have facilities. They got physical facilities. They have a staff. They have legislative agencies to help them. They have all the tools they need. And it has changed tremendously.
Are there things or qualities that have remained constant during the time that you've been here?
The procedure is somewhat constant, except that it's become much more partisan. I think we could upgrade our rules a little bit, and hopefully we would get away from partisanship. But that is it's developed on the national level, and it's trickled down to the state, as far as I'm concerned. And we see that more and more controversial matters are strictly partisan votes. One party votes one way, the other party votes the other way. And in fact, the last session, there were more straight party line votes than any session in the history of the state. I think that's bad. I think that when they're partisan, you find that decisions are made behind closed doors in caucuses. And it used to be that we would act on the Senate floor on bills that maybe the committee didn't like. Now we see that the committee chairmen don't report out bills that they don't like, for instance, and the decisions are made by leadership in majority caucuses. The pendulum does move, and things do change. And one thing that we know for sure is that for certainty that things will change, and I'm happy to be part of it.
So I'm going to switch gears a little bit and ask you some questions more about yourself than about the Capitol.
Sure.
I noticed I see you out on the square with your walking poles. I see we're sitting in your office there in the corner. I think physical fitness is pretty important to you, right?
As you get older, the physical fitness is more paramount than when you're younger. Early on, I decided that we sat too much, so I decided not to ride the elevator. And I haven't ridden the elevator in this building in over 60 years.
Oh my goodness.
And so whether I belong on the 4th floor or the 1st floor, I always walk up the steps. And for over 60 years, I've never been on the state elevator. And I think just that little up and down the steps helps. And it's actually, in many respects, it's faster than the elevator. And so that's one of my little sidelights. I'm a biker, and during the biking season, whenever I get a chance, I get out biking. My wife and I have a garden that we keep up, and that we go down during gardening season every evening and working there. So I think physical activity is extremely important, and I've been very fortunate to maintain my health.
What is your favorite place that you've traveled to? I know you and your wife like to travel a bit too.
We love to travel, and we've been to all 7 continents. Last couple of years ago, we went to Antarctica to make the 7th continent.
Wow.
Is good for the mind as well as the body, and I've become quite an internationalist. It's one world, and the world is getting smaller every year. And to turn around and say you can wall in one country is just not so. And I think that the exchange of students is wonderful. If I had my way, I would like to see 1 year of every 4-year college term abroad. I think the students getting to know students in other countries and getting people of other countries to get to know us is very good. And outside of government, that's having the relationships are very, very significant and have an effect. So I'm an internationalist, and I think that mixing with people of other countries is a very good idea, and it helps world peace and helps the world economy.
So in all your time that you've been doing this, have you ever thought, I should just retire and go and relax, enjoy myself?
Well, I have no real interest in it right now. As long as my constituents have honored me by letting me represent them, I will be happy to do so.
Have any of your children or grandchildren gone into politics? Does the political strain go farther?
I have 3 children, and I have 4 grandchildren, and I have a great-grandchild, and unfortunately, none of them have shown an interest in running for office, but they all vote, and they all participate in the voting, in the discussion about politics, which is important.
Back to the physical activity, I've heard about you doing your bike ride every year on your birthday. So how does this work? You bike a mile for every year?
I have what I do is I bike my age in a single day about my birthday time, and I have been able to keep it up. And this last year, I biked my 91 miles on my 91st birthday. Takes a little longer every year. I have to start early in the morning, and I go all day long, but it can be done. And I put in about 3,000 miles biking this last year during the year. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to bike in the winter. I'm a good weather biker, mm-hmm. but it's good recreation, and I generally do it solo because it's a great time to just think about things and clear your mind, in my opinion.
Yeah. Are you a music fan at all?
I let my wife take care of most of the music
in
the interests. I am not anywhere near as knowledgeable on that subject as she is, and we enjoy going to concerts together on occasion. And but she picks those out, and I'm happy to join with her.
That's a good way to be. Well, I'm going to ask you 2 questions I try to ask every elected official I interview, very Wisconsin specific. Do you have a favorite Wisconsin beer?
Favorite Wisconsin
beer, a beer brewed in Wisconsin?
Yes, I do. I have. I enjoy the Spotted Cow. Glarus.
Very classic.
And it's a local beer. It's not sold outside the state, mm-hmm. and whenever I get a chance, I like that. Also, when I go to certain restaurants, I inquire about certain foreign beers that I like. Yeah. Foreign beers in Japan and China and whatnot, but a local beer is a Spotted Cow.
That's a classic choice. Do you have a favorite Wisconsin cheese?
Boy, Wisconsin is a cheese capital of the world, and I like all cheeses. Aged cheddar is especially good.
That's very good. My last question for you would be, if someone were coming to Madison, to your district, and had never been here before, what are a few things you would recommend that they must experience?
Well, it depends on the weather, quite frankly.
Mm-hmm.
But depending on their interests, but we have a fantastic university And we have a lot of aspects of the university. If they're interested in athletics, we have the athletic program. If they're interested in walking, the picnic point is a wonderful place. And we have a lot of areas. But the university is a goal for a lot of people here. If they're interested in just the downtown area, of course, the Monona Terrace is a very famous but very interesting place to go. I recommend that. Recommend the Overture Center, of course, if you're interested in the arts. And it's a state-of-the-art facility. I would recommend that. If they're interested in garden activity, Obrick Gardens are fantastic, and we have a great place there. I would recommend that. If you want to walk, depending on whether they want to walk up and down State Street, which is an interesting street, or maybe they want to go to some of our parks. We got some great parks. And I could name a dozen parks in Madison, and they're all great parks. Warner Park was named after my grandfather, Ernest Warner. And Marshall Park it was named after a relative of mine too. So anyway, but there are other parks in here, and they're great. I think that Madison is a wonderful place. We have over 500 places that serve food, and we have excellent restaurants in different communities. We have restaurants in just about every ethnic idea you can think of. And so if they're here to any time, I'd certainly move them to the restaurant to see. So actually, this is a great place. We've got it all here.
We do. I know I said that was going to be my last question, but you made me think of one more, because your family does have this legacy throughout Madison. So what is your hope 60, 90 years from now that your legacy will be in Madison or in the state of Wisconsin?
Well, I really think that Wisconsin is is an environmental gem. We got great parks, and I would like to see them develop greater. I'd like to see that more of the land be made public around some of our beautiful lakes. And I'd like to see the public have a chance to enjoy the outdoors. I've done a lot of mountain hiking, and I think it's a wonderful activity to have fresh air and fresh water, and shall we say, I used to say we had good air, good water, good government. I'm not, the government is a questionable one sometimes, but we do have great services in Madison. One thing Madison has that many communities don't have is excellent first-rate services. Now, we have to pay for them. That people around here are interested in living a good life, and we live a good life here. And people come from around the world and come to Madison, and many of them stay here, whether they start at the university or start somewhere else. My wife is one that came to Madison for an education, decided to stay here. And so we have a great place. And I would say that I've been all over the world, that there's nice places to visit, but the place to live is right here. I plan to spend the rest of my life here.
Thank you for listening to Wedge Issues. Our theme music is Oh Wisconsin by Loxley. We'll be back every Friday with new episodes, so make sure you're subscribed on iTunes or wherever you find your podcasts so you don't miss out. If you have feedback or suggestions for me, you can find me on Twitter at Jessie Opoien, JESSIE or you can email me at JOPOIEN@madison.com. You can also check out our other Cap Times podcasts like The Madsplainers and The Corner Table. We'll see you next week when hopefully it's not quite so icy outside.